Why does everyone look the same? Today we're talking about Instagram face, alternate realities, and why aesthetics will never make you beautiful. Hello, and we are back with another video essay. I'm Carla. If you're new here, I make video essays like these. We like to talk about pop culture, body image, fashion, internet trends, all of that stuff. So if you're interested in any of that, please do subscribe. We're growing a lovely community and we're almost at 1,400 subscribers, which is crazy. So if you want to join this community, or if you have any video ideas or things you want to know more about, please do comment them below. And I'm carlascalling everywhere, by the way. We're going to be talking about, Kylie Jenner, tweakments, plastic surgery, Botox, filler, and perhaps the most accessible form of changing our perception of what a woman's face should look like, filters. Let's get into it. Also, you can see my tripod in the mirror. Hope you don't mind. And I have a little zit sticker. Do you think that reality is worth perceiving? Because when we go on social media and we share our life on there, we are ideally, and maybe we truly believe we are, showing a real example of our lives. But how can we truly let others perceive our reality through like a 6-inch screen? And not only a 6-inch screen, but a 6-inch screen with a carefully curated feed or aesthetic of how we want to present ourselves. And not only that, but these curated moments are gone from our screens with the flick of a thumb. And so when you consume aspirational content on social media, sure, part of you could try and replicate that in your own life, Maybe you host a cute dinner party with pastel plates and cute taper candles, but you'll never actually attain that moment that was promised to you in that TikTok, for example, which is happiness and aesthetic happiness without any effort. People rarely show the amount of work that goes into creating or curating an aesthetic in their daily lives. And I think you'll quickly realize this if you try and mimic someone else's life that you perceive on social media and realize that it's actually quite difficult to achieve the same aesthetic or promise of happiness. This article from No Basic Girls Allowed used the popular loungewear brand Yeezy as an example of this. This isn't life-inspired fashion culture. It's curated and algorithmic. What we realize is that all of these different aesthetics, which as we define them now are ways to live, eat, and work, are fragmented forms of reality. Yes, they may be inspired by real life, but are they honest? Far from it. And I say far from it because these aesthetics don't allow you to be a multifaceted person. Just ask anyone who made a living off of, the cottagecore aesthetic, for example, on TikTok, who is now finding themselves stuck in a box. These creators, and this isn't just for the cottagecore aesthetic, I'm just using that as an example, may have very well made a living off of their aesthetic aspirational videos, primarily through things like sponsorships, partnered posts. But then they've inadvertently made it so that their livelihoods in the form of these sponsorships depend on convincing people that their ears know nothing but the scratch of vinyl, and their feet know nothing but some lace-up brogues. And this is because the algorithm thrives on consistency, second only to a nice face and a nice body. And this consistency, that means in terms of posting, but also consistency of what we look like and what we want the women, primarily women I'm talking about, in our aspirational content to look like. And I think maybe 2016, maybe even 2014, Kylie Jenner was the catalyst for our new desire for consistent faces on our feeds. And this would become known as Instagram face. And this Instagram face aesthetic very quickly took over, It wasn't just Kylie Jenner or other model types mimicking this specific face, but even the most impish of early bloggers on social media slowly but also very quickly became kind of monotonous vixens with pouty lips and arched eyebrows. And now we have filters to do this for us in real time. Also, if you're watching this part of the video, comment the lipstick emoji. Filters have adopted AI level technology that can change our faces in real time to the point where it's actually hard to tell now when filters are on versus before when it was quite obvious. They've also just generally become way more accepted, which, I don't necessarily think it's a horrible thing if you just want to look like you have a bit of makeup on and you use a light filter, especially on apps like TikTok where it says if a filter is on. But just because we're honest about it doesn't mean it doesn't still mess with our heads and perception of reality. And gone are the days when mimicking, someone like Kylie Jenner and the Instagram face look in general required lots of money for tweakments or just straight up plastic surgery or hours and hours in a makeup chair. Filters and photo/video editing apps are eerily realistic, going far beyond the cartoonish filters that were first popularized on Snapchat back in the day. Bridge of the nose narrowed, apples of the cheeks plumped, upper lip and eyes enlarged by 1.5 times, a wash of a tanned, ethnically ambiguous skin tone, and you're set. Except you're not, because we're always making women's bodies trends. There's been the fox eye trend, having extremely hollow cheekbones, carefully placed freckles, smooth glass skin, etc., etc. And while on one hand it's harder than ever to keep up with changing trends, it's also easier than ever because you can find a filter to mimic any of those looks, except for the fact that they don't always work on non-white faces, but that's another conversation. These filters often do feel ridiculous when we use them on ourselves for the first time, but we don't realize that we are so used to seeing them on popular faces on the internet. Even influencers or content creators who make content preaching, natural beauty and being yourself, blah, 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 most of the time, I would say 99% of them, are still trying to find the best lighting. Maybe they're using a really light filter and they know all their great angles. And I'm not calling them out for doing that. I do that. Obviously, I'm not going to post a picture of myself like in the most horrible lighting and horrendous angle. But it does skew what we believe to be realistic. And quite naturally, from a consumer's perspective, we use these people as a standard for what is beautiful and what is attractive. And this indeterminate line between envy and admiration keeps us from even batting an eye when we see our favorite content creator using heavy filters in their content. And heavy filters meaning like feature altering filters. And I think there's also a casualness with which we view this sort of dishonesty in some people online, some creators online. If you're honest about the fact that you've had work done or that you're using filters because you can literally tell on the app, then, I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with it. But when people are making money primarily off of the way that they look and aren't being honest about the fact that the way they look is not really them, it gets complicated and it gets dangerous, especially if young people, young women, young girls are viewing their content. And I think how casual this behavior has become has created like this weird desire in us as consumers of content to defend total strangers, being like, they just overlined their lips. You can tell here they've always had like their cheekbones this high and they never had anything. And it's just like, one, it doesn't matter. And two, like, we don't actually know. We don't know for sure if someone's gotten work done or if they're editing their pictures. We can only assume, but it's complicated. And I do think that sometimes this desire to defend our favorite creators online is warranted. People, and especially women who are in the limelight, or in this case, I should say the blue light, are heavily scrutinized for the way they look, the way they act, the way they talk, everything. And especially being reprimanded and policed for what they do with their bodies. I don't think anyone should necessarily have to explain what they've done to change their appearance and for what reason. Because for me, the issue in this doesn't lie in the fact that bodies are sacred and must not be touched. But instead, for me, the issue is what seems like intentional fragmentation of reality, especially because these ever-changing ideals come from a society that makes trends out of body parts and cherry picks their favorite features to adopt from otherwise undesirable ethnic groups. And the impact of these trends isn't anything new. The pressure to change our looks according to the white cultural norm of the time is a reality, a constant reality for any of us in the digital age. I remember being 12 years old, sitting in the cafeteria with our PE teacher leading a health class on body image, which was as unnatural as it sounds. And we were watching a video showing, how this brunette woman with oily patches and textured skin with a few swipes of Photoshop quickly became the flawless blonde woman that we were used to seeing in magazines. And the before was a conventionally attractive woman, just with real skin. Wasn't anything drastic. And after this, moving Photoshop time lapse, she looked nothing like the conventionally attractive woman that she was before, and instead she looked how she was supposed to. And it was very unsettling how wrong, but also kind of right it felt at the time, because these are fairly subtle changes that were happening, and we were already so used to the second image, the after image, that going from the before to the after felt normal, even if we knew it was wrong. And in cosmetic surgery clinics, this shocking subtlety is repeated on a more permanent level. I think in general, we have a new appreciation for cosmetic surgery, not only for the way it can change lives, for the fact that it can help people who have some sort of debilitating deformity or even rectifying a botched previous plastic surgery job. But also we have a newfound appreciation for the perceived gentleness of new procedures. As long as something's tastefully done, we're completely game for it. And tweakments are the new thing, a hint of Botox, a bit of filler, maybe some threads to pull up the face a little bit. Using and presenting cosmetic treatments on the same level as plucking your eyebrows, for example. And the goal of this, to achieve a beautiful face that can keep up with ever-changing trends while also aging gracefully. Basically accomplishing the impossible. But the real goal, rebranding existing procedures as minor beauty treatments, akin to a mani-pedi or eyebrow threading, making consumers feel as if this is just another beauty treatment they can tack onto their monthly bill, and one that they should tack on to their monthly bill. Finally, there's no shame in getting work done until there is for you. But I think let's call it what it is and stay aware of the changing faces on our screens, especially when they all start to kind of blend together. Because things get tricky when we dive into this alternate reality on social media, ready to dole out money to always, but also ultimately never look normal and attractive. That was it for today's video essay. I hope you enjoyed it. This was really fun to talk about, and if you're here this long, you'll actually know that I was kind of presenting an article that I wrote a few years ago called Alternate Reality, the one on my screen. If you enjoyed this, please do like, comment, subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!